Hello, NFL fans or anybody else watching this video. Here we are at the end of the week one of the NFL season. Well, I guess not really the end of week one. There's still a game tonight. Maybe I'll make a short about the game tonight with the Broncos versus the Seahawks. But we'll see. I'll watch the highlights. Don't know if I'll actually get to watch the game, but I'll be able to watch. Yeah, I'll be able to watch the stream at least. Highlights. It's been a crazy week. I know it's been said. I'm sure it's been said a lot, but yeah, it's been a crazy, insane week. But then again, week one of the NFL season usually is a crazy, insane week. Now you can expect the Packers not to play well. You can basically just expect anybody not to play well that didn't always try to play some of their starters in the preseason, because just preseason, while beneficial, just to give rookies and players trying to make the roster a roster spot, it nowhere compares to the regular season of the NFL, by no means. But before we get into the content or the review, my name is Red Dead Takes, and as always, here we are with my first live stream. And hopefully it goes well. It's probably going to be a big mess, but hopefully any of you out there that are looking for just a down to earth take from your average NFL fan about what I think of the games every week, please check it out. Give it a like, comment, subscribe. Really looking for some new subscribers. My videos have been doing better, but still not up to par with what they could be. So if you do genuinely like my content, please give it a like, just that one click. And again, the subscribe button if you want to see more content in the future. Make sure you hit the bell notification twice to get notifications for all my videos. I know, I hate the spiel. I hate the spiel of going through, talking about likes, comments, and everything, but it really helps. I've noticed that likes really do help drive your video content further. So, yeah, if you do like my content, please don't hesitate to like it. And as always, if you disagree with any of my opinions, please feel free to hit me up in the comment section. And yeah, let's get to it. Guess we don't need that right now. Yeah, its microphone picks up sound really well, but at the same time, the further you go away, the less sound you're going to hear. So anyway, just some overall thoughts from week one. Again, first week, you usually get a couple big injuries, players going down, especially good ones, and then they're out for the rest of the year. Fortunately, I haven't seen any updates, but I'm guessing if TJ Watt does in fact have a torn pectoral muscle, that he'll probably be done for the year. It's upsetting. He's a good player to watch, and it's going to be a killer to Pittsburgh's defense. I mean, they'll still have a decent defense. They still have players on their defense, but it's just for somebody like that to be able to change the game, to not have that player in your normal lineup, it's really tough. Especially after the game they had yesterday, they're winning in the most insane fashion possible. Yeah, it's really upsetting. Hopefully, for their sake, Najee Harris will not be out for too long. But again, if he's out, that's going to be an even deeper blow. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think whenever Steelers think Kenny Pickett is ready, they should for sure send him out to start, because Mitch Trubisky just is not the answer. I know the Steelers are probably going to want to wait on that for further confirmation, but based on week one performance, He did not do great. Not saying that Kenny Pickett would have done much better, but it was because of the ineptness of the Pittsburgh Steelers that the Bengals were able to get back in that game when they had no business being in that game. The Steelers again will end up showing that. Yeah, that's enough Steeler talk. We'll get more into it when I talk about the game in the next couple. But then Dak Prescott, that's just going to be a big blow to Dallas. My pick for them not making the playoffs is looking pretty good so far, but I don't want to beat it because of injuries like that, because then Cowboys fans will have their supposed way out. Like, oh, we lost our best player. Like, well, that's too bad. That injuries happen all the time. He still missed the playoffs, so it's going to be a tough climb for them. Now, supposedly they have an easy schedule this year. Oh, I mean, they always do because they play that division. But even then, the Cowboys still find ways to fuck things up. And here's a Packers fan. Hopefully, Chris Barnes is not out for long. Hopefully, it's not a really severe injury. Hopefully, Quay Walker's not out for a long time. And with the Packers, hopefully their offensive line gets back together. I didn't expect Bakhtiari or Jenkins to play. That was just a forlorn hope that they could possibly play, but alas, it did not happen. And what other injuries were there? I have yet to see confirmation on how badly injured Elijah Mitchell is, but it's a knee injury, so that's always troubling to hear. I'm just going to say right off, well, we'll get back into that later. It's actually the third game, so it'll be shortly. And then we got, see what other injuries were there this week. Yeah, hopefully you guys can still see me. It's my first time doing a live stream, so I do not know how all of this worked. And again, I did okay. I got half the games right this week. I'm gonna pick them in the picks I put out this week. So if you were followed those picks and had the same result, I apologize. But when I put out there that I truly put out in jest that my picks were totally accurate. They were totally accurate. So use your own judgment. If you take my injuries as gospel. If you take my predictions as gospel, well, that's your own fault. Okay. Yeah, again, the Packers without Allen Lazard, that really hurt. As I mentioned in my video, as a reminder, I just put out a video last night and my reaction to the Green Bay Packers loss, and I was just very frank and upfront. I mean, it's kind of apathetic in the loss, but in the long run, yeah, I don't know. I still love seeing I still love seeing in I still love reading articles about the Cowboys saying, "Oh my gosh, Dak Prescott being injured really dashed their hopes this year." When in fact, yes, it did. But even with Dak Prescott, their prospects this year were not looking good. I mean, sure, I'm kind of biased just because I just hate the Cowboys so much. Yeah, they weren't even with the healthy Dak Prescott for all 17 games. I only had them projected at a 9-8, maybe 10-7 record, just because it's the Cowboys. I mean, and they don't have a long track record lately of success. Haven't I think it's they still haven't won a playoff game since 1996. So, yeah. But I guess it's enough small talk. Let's get into the games. Since I didn't talk much about this game, let's talk about the Rams and the Bills. Just gloss over that since a lot of people have probably talked about it already on their respective channels. But if you're here listening to me, I thank you. Thank you for joining. But the Bills just came out and showed what happens when you play your starters during the preseason. Yes, at the risk of injury, but just shows how much more prepared a team can be when they play their starters through the preseason and they're actually able to play the full game or actually ready but for the or full season. And then again, like I said, it's a big risk playing your starters in the preseason, but there's no better way to prepare than on-field reps. There's just not. And I'm sure any coach in the NFL will tell you that you can learn more from a in-game from a off-season practice than you can a preseason game anyway. Preseason game is just a main way to it's just scrimmage basically. So I mean, they don't losses don't count. Wins and losses don't count, and it's always funny watching every year people overreact and underreact to uh, preseason results. Oh, they've been so well in the preseason, they're going to do well. Well, until this year, the Ravens had 20, I think it was 22 wins in a row in the preseason. So that means that they still haven't won a Super Bowl since then. So does it really matter? But anyway, back to the Rams and the Bills. I think the Rams were just kind of struggling just because they played a lot of the preseason without Matthew Stafford. He just had injuries. He had that elbow injury. Who knows if that's really affecting him this year? Probably is. It's probably going to be affecting him all year. But I mean, their defensive time looks pretty good, and they had several opportunities to outright win the game with the Bills' numerous turnovers. And when I was watching the game, watching it with my family. I made the crack about Devin Singletary being Devin Singletary, but now it looks like he'll probably get more protection in the future just because of the fumbles from James Cook and Zach Woods. So, or Zach Moss, not Zach Woods, Zach Moss, idiot. But yeah, the Bills just shined. I mean, there's blemishes on Josh Allen's stats for the week because of that 2 times where those interceptions were not their fault. Again, can we please, when during those scenarios where a quarterback throws the ball and the ball bounces off the receiver's hands into a waiting defender's arms, can that please be attributed to the wide receiver? Because if you take away those interceptions, sure, with Allen that those are still incompletions in that aspect, but those blemishes don't affect MVP votes down the line because oh he had a couple more interceptions. Oh well, when you subtract the interceptions that didn't really mean much or were not because of himself throwing the ball, you know. But the Bills look great. Josh Allen looks great. He just looks more calm and confident in the pocket. His accuracy was definitely up. It was great to see him starting out the first 10 throws with all completions. And then of course, NBC has the traditional jinx of saying, "Oh, he's had 10 completions in a row. I wonder how far it's going to go." And as soon as I heard it was 10 completions in a row, I just knew that something bad was going to happen, and sure enough, it did. Sure enough, it bounced off was by Isaiah McKenzie's hand right into a waiting defender's arms. Yeah, I think it was EJ Gaines, now that I remember. And yeah, it sure didn't amount to much, but it's one of those moments that you do look back and like, wow, the Rams could have taken advantage of that and scored a touchdown. I don't think that was the drive that they scored a touchdown. I think it was their following drive where they scored a touchdown, but the Bills had like 4 or 5 turnovers, and 2 of them were not on Josh Allen, although they are attributed to him, and there were a bunch of fumbles that were just awful, just blatant drops. But yeah, the Bills, yeah, they look even more ferocious than I thought they would be. That defense is legit. It's amazing how much Javon Miller being there can really improve a defense. I mean, sure, he did get a sack of his own, but just the free way to allow the defensive tackles and the right side to freely attack and rush the quarterback without the fear of Von Miller like falling out of coverage or something. Just him being there affects that defense so much, and the defense probably is going to get even better. Trey White is out for the first 4 weeks. Who knows? They could win all their games and still have Trey White coming in and shutting down number one wide receivers like he has done all of his career. And hopefully that happens. Like I stated in past videos, I think the Bills will definitely go to the Super Bowl this time. Although they may have some competition with the Chiefs this year after all. I still think the Chiefs winning by so much yesterday is more an effect of Arizona's just inability to do anything on offense. Sure, they had the two garbage time touchdowns. In the end, I hope people didn't lose fantasy matchups because of those garbage time touchdowns. Just because he was Murray was just terrible all game and it was just awful. But yeah, to get back to the Bills look great. Showed a lot of guff this week, and I'm sure they will continue it next week. I don't know who they play next week, but I'm sure they'll be ripped and ready to go after a nice 9-day break. So now to get in the next game, the first of the crazy games of the weekend, the Saints and the Falcons. My God, as a Saints fan, I was stunned in this game. Although not completely. Wasn't completely stunned. As I mentioned in my video of my picks for this week, they should totally check out. So just for shits and giggles, um, he or the Saints came out as badly as you could possibly be on offense. Now again, um, James Winston missed a good amount of offseason activities with still recovering from his knee, and I think he had another injury, and it really showed. Their offense just couldn't do anything. Sure, there was a couple of great runs by Taysom Hill that kept them in it, and it's very beneficial for them that happened, but even Kamara didn't really show up that much. Michael Thomas just is probably worrying fantasy owners like myself. Although, to be honest, it wasn't worrying me too much just because I knew that he was still coming off an injury, that it would take a little bit of time for him to work back into game shape, but he showed up later in the game. But yeah, for the Falcons, Mariota looked halfway decent throughout the game. And the defense stopped the Saints a lot. Now I think that it's a output of the Saints' offense just inability to do anything, but they look better than I thought they would be. So again, just like coming to the fourth quarter and the Saints are down. What was it? It was like 20. They were down by like 16 points with 11:35 left in the fourth quarter, and Suddenly, the Saints defense starts to show up. They get a couple stops. Winston starts to be able to throw down the field, finding Michael Thomas for 2 touchdowns, and then making the first 2-point conversion, which is very crucial that they did that. And then they missed the second 2-point conversion, which at that point is like, oh, it's probably over. It was probably over. They're not going to win. And then the Falcons are moving and moving. Saints get a stop. Saints get the ball back. They go down the field and score a field goal. Very nice field goal. And then it's the end of the game. And my God, it's so frustrating. With the Saints, with the number of dumb defensive penalties that always seem to happen. Yeah. Marcus Lattimore with one of the dumbest roughing penalties, and then he had a couple of holding, and I think he had a PI call on him that allowed the Falcons to nearly close out the game. And it's just, I love Marcus Lattimore. He's a true shutdown cornerback, but there are times where he just acts like an idiot and commits dumb penalties, and I've noticed that a lot over his career with the Saints. And God, I hope it gets better in the future. Thankfully, the Saints were still able to pull it out because of an amazing blocked field goal, which, if it weren't for that stupid penalty, the Falcons wouldn't have even been in the range to kick a field goal. And it's just one of those things like, man, if they would have lost because of that penalty and the kick wasn't blocked, that would have been so deflating. And as a Saints fan, I've had a lot of deflating losses over the last couple of years, a lot of them unjust. And sure, I'm sure there's people out there that can say, oh, it's probably due to your coach cheating and with the bounty gate. Although still, I don't think there was enough or any evidence to the contrary to say that actually happened. I think it was just a means for the NFL to crack down on the Saints. Honestly, the year after they win a Super Bowl, then yeah. But I won't get in that today. Maybe a video someday, but I don't want to be that Saints fan that makes a big deal about Sean Payton and Bountygate. Although I think it was right that the players in that scenario eventually did not get suspended or had their sentences reduced because obvious reason. But yeah, the Saints they escape with a 27-26 victory, and it's just another showing of the Atlanta Falcons sucking balls and completely collapsing. And to anybody that commented on my video in August about the NFC South, saying that the Skanks were going to lose to the Falcons, suck on that. The Saints win. It's not pretty fashion at all. It's actually really hard and gut churning, and it really makes you want to throw a controller through the TV, but it's still better than Madden. So, yeah, to anybody that wants to know what I think of Madden, Madden is trash. Although I can play some of the earlier games on Xbox One. Madden 17's okay. Madden 18 is probably the one I go to the most. But mainly just because you can find it's always fun going back in a Madden game or any sports game for that matter. Go back a couple years, find the players that are now stars, and then drafting them all. So then your team is super stacked, and then you just dominate. It's really fun. But anyway, yeah, Saints. I hope they play better next week because they were just fortunate they played the Falcons. Playing against just about any other NFL team, and this is not possible. And the Falcons, you still suck. You're not making the playoffs this year. To anybody that thinks they are, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. So, but I could be proved wrong. I could be proven to be a giant idiot. It wouldn't bother me. It would just be like, well, that's just dumb. Yeah. We have San Francisco and Chicago. The Rain Bowl. Just a disgrace what's happening in the city of Chicago I'm in. All that rain. Again, don't want to get political, but your mayor sucks. And her talking about the Bears not keeping their stadium in Chicago and saying that I'll show you my real power is just a complete lack of awareness that is just hard to find in people. I swear the woman is dense as a fucking boulder, and it just continues to show. And the way that your city continues to collapse under the decay and urban rot that you continuously choose not to fix because you're a hack, you want people to suffer, and you're a bad person. Refute that, bitch. But um but yeah, playing the field it was just kind of a sloppy game throughout, understandably because of the rain. That the fumble by Debo Samuel was a really bad one. Could have been due because of the wet ball, but I think that was just a fumble. And then Justin Fields didn't look great. Trey Lance didn't really look great at all during the whole game. Really showing that he has a lot to learn still. He still has all the potential in the world to be better. I still have my doubts, but San Francisco should give him time, even if it means putting Garoppolo out there to give Lance more time to produce because you invested so much to get him. You can't afford him getting killed with your kind of revolving door offensive line that you had yesterday. Mike McGlinchey is not the best tackle in the world, and kind of shows at times. But yeah, the 49ers they had it going for a time. They were running the ball well with Elijah Mitchell, and then he had that knee injury. And I think fundamentally that game is where when he went out with the knee injury was where the game flipped, and then Chicago was able to eventually come back. I think if Elijah Mitchell was able to hang in there all game, I think 49ers still maybe pull out a close one. Just because he was running it so well, 6 carries for 43 yards in the wet, sloppy rain. He looked great. And then the knee injury, hopefully for their sake, it's not too severe. But um, yeah, hopefully it's not too severe. Even though I really don't like the 49ers and hope they kind of suck on a bunch of dicks. Hopefully for their sake, he's not injured for too long. And then their offense really couldn't do anything after that. I mean, thankfully for fantasy reason, Debo Samuel got that one rushing touchdown and a couple good runs. But in the second half, the 49ers didn't really, they didn't score at all. It was 13-10. No, it was 13-0, I think. And it just, no, it was 10-0. Yeah, it didn't look close. And it wasn't close. But then, like I said, Elijah Mitchell going out really affected the 49ers, and they just couldn't run the ball after that because Jeff Wilson is a good change of pace back, but as a fullback, no, I don't think so. And yeah, Fields looked good at times. He had that one deep ball to their Equinemius that St. Brown that was just like a means of the defense missing, just flat out missing the coverage, and is able to basically walk right in. It was more a function of bad defense and not great throwing, although it was a pretty good throw. I think Justin Fields still has a lot to prove. He was sacked a good amount. That offensive line is terrible. Luckily for them, like I said, Elijah Mitchell going out, if he stays in the whole game, they probably win. Or 49ers probably win, and the Bears are 0-1. So unfortunately, the Packers have to wait 3 weeks before they can pass the Bears for most wins all time. That's unfortunate, but it'll happen. The Packers will be the winningest team of all time by the middle of the season for sure. And if it's the opposite, it's going to be really depressing. But I don't think it will. But not much more to say about this game. Oh, I guess that penalty where they had to or tried to wipe off the field or wipe off the balls to get better kick for the kicker for Santos, and then he gets a 50-yard penalty. I mean, I guess it makes sense. They have the possibility of somebody bringing on a towel with a foreign substance and then, changing the outcome of the game. But to be honest, it's such a disgrace. I mean, honestly, it's such a disgrace just because the Soldier Field is a disgrace. And yeah, immediately when I saw the penalty, or I thought, so that's not okay, but for the Patriots to use a convict to drive a snowplow to blow a patch of snow away so they can kick a field goal, that's okay. It just doesn't make any sense. And just another reason why the Patriots are favored by the NFL. And you cannot prove me otherwise. It is true. NFL favors the Patriots, although maybe not so much now because your deal with the devil, Tom Brady, is no longer there. But yeah, I don't think this is a sign of things to come for the Bears. I think the Bears will still be terrible this year. I don't see them winning more than 5 games. I think 5 games is still generous. So to the next crazy game, the Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati was just, boy, that was something. Just some short thoughts. I don't think Joe Burrow will continue to throw interceptions like he did in this game. Pittsburgh Steelers defense was great. Their offense was terrible for the most part. I mean, they scored, but yeah, it wasn't very great. And now with Najee Harris possibly being out a decent amount of time, their offense is going to suffer more, putting more pressure on that defense. And just the Bengals missing those field goals were a function of their long snapper having a bicep injury, proving again why the NFL teams still think it's a reasonable thing to pay long snappers. So it's always good as a good reminder. Long snappers still play a pivotal role. It is not as easy as it looks to just catch the ball, put it down, and then in like a 2 to 3 second time frame and expect the ball to still go in. And we saw that throughout the game from the usually reliable Evan McPherson, one of the most exciting kickers of last year. It continues to show that long snappers are still very necessary. So this game, I talked a little bit about it in the intro. Um, they didn't look great. Then they showed up at the end, or often start to show up at the end, and Burrows just was able to get to Jamar Chase, and it was a good show. Um, there was a play towards the end of the game where Jamar Chase caught a ball and he ran it, but they called him out of bounds, even though he clearly scored. I think if they would have reviewed that play, it would have been overturned because he caught the ball, his foot was on the white line. That is a measure of him crossing the line and it being a touchdown. So that call should have been reviewed. I know it's the end of the game, so Cincinnati couldn't challenge it, but the call really should have been looked at, and the result would have been very different. And then, like I said, the misses for the Bengals were because of the missing long snapper. I think the Bengals will right the ship next week. They're not this bad. I mean, the Steelers almost like collapsed in the most Steeler way possible, and just because of the luck of the draw, they win. So, um, yeah, not much more to say. I hopefully it's not a pectoral injury for Watt, even though by the sounds of it, it probably is, and that would just be devastating for the defense. But to go into the next game with Philadelphia versus Detroit offense looks much better than I thought it would. It looks really great. They're only missing a good, competent quarterback, and even then, Jared Goff showed signs yesterday that he can still do it. With the Eagles, again, Jalen Hurts, I think, still needs to get better at throwing the ball. He looked pretty good at times, but there are a couple bad throws that he had. I mean, it makes him look better with A.J. Brown there, who just, what a statement game for him after being traded away. He looked great. Probably going to continue that for the rest of the year. And, excuse me, guys, I'm going to get a drink quick. All right, I'm back. So sorry, I had to get a drink, but back to the Philadelphia versus Detroit. Philadelphia looked great. So did Detroit. I think the defense for Detroit still has a lot of work to do, but they showed signs today. And Philadelphia's defense looked pretty legit. Yeah, like I was saying before, Jalen Hurts needs to get better at throwing the ball. He didn't look great at times. Very nearly could have. The Lions nearly came back all the way, just like they did last year against the 49ers. Although, same as last year's result, they lost again. Although the Lions have a lot to look forward to. Like I said, all they're missing is a couple piece here and there on defense, and a true number one threat on offense at receiver, and then a number one quarterback. And Lions will be back into a position they have not been in over 60 years. So, yeah, there's good things between the Lions and the Eagles. I think the Eagles will continue to play well next week when they play the Vikings and show the Vikings for the not so good team that they are. Yes, I know this is as a Packer fan, but like I said in my video yesterday, well, actually watch my video for my thoughts. Maybe I'll elaborate in a little bit if I talk about the Green Bay Minnesota game again, but a lot of what I had to say in that game I said in the video. But yeah, got that game right, of course, but good things for both teams. New England and Miami. New England's offense looks dreadful. It really does. It sucks in my draft. In my fantasy football draft, I got kicked out of the draft, then couldn't get back logged in, so I ended up with Ramondre Stevenson, who now, after hearing all about him in the offseason, now doesn't look great just because of that offense. Just looks dreadful. Mac Jones appears not to have taken the next step, although give him more time and he should get better. But after this week, was not great. Miami, again, while they scored, they didn't look great at times. Tua still has more to prove. He made some good throws, but he made some bad throws as well. I think he fumbled also, so that's bad. The Jalen Waddle and the Tua Tagovailoa, the Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill will continue to be a big source of their offense. Hopefully, they can develop that running game more because that could be a threat. But yeah, Tyreek Hill didn't dominate. He looked great at times, but again, Tua couldn't get him the ball all the time, so he probably would have had more gaudy numbers. And yeah, Miami has more to improve on. New England definitely has more to improve on that because that offense is not great. Their defense still has some players on it, and they look decent at times, but overall, the Patriots' performance was not great, and Miami's was a mixed bag. Even though they won by a good amount, Miami still has more to prove. So hopefully, for their sake, they can improve. They can improve better because if they, I don't know when they play New England again, but next time it'll be in Foxborough, and it could be a very different scenario. So yeah, this game wasn't very interesting to watch, to be honest. Wasn't a fan. And next we'll go into Baltimore and the Jets. The Jets defense looks pretty good, all things considered. Baltimore still has players out, so the offense will improve. Lamar Jackson showed up after denying that contract extension. He showed up great yesterday, finding Tavarney for 2 touchdowns and Rashad Bateman for 1. Yeah, the offense struggled a little bit in the first quarter. Again, though, will improve once they get back J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. And then that offense will probably really take off. But a pretty good game for the Ravens overall. Like I said, not a lot of offense in the first half, but they picked it up. And the Jets, their offense needs work. Probably get better once they get back Zach Wilson. She should be back in the next 2 weeks or so. And but they're all things considered, their defense looked pretty good, considering the matchup they were up against. Some things to improve on, but their defense is moving the right direction. That offensive line is going to be a mess just because Becton is probably out for the year, and then Dwayne Brown got injured and is out for the first 4 weeks. So line's going to be a struggle, and Flacco is definitely not the answer, but he's a 40-year-old quarterback. So what do you expect? I think there's some good things going forward. Whether all things considered, with both teams, the Jets definitely need another good draft, but they should get better. And yeah, they could feasibly finish above New England in the or the AFC. Sorry for that, but we'll have to wait and see. Ravens, I think I'm still picking them to win their division, but The Bengals will improve, and those will be some great matchups in the future. Cleveland and Carolina. Aha, Baker. I was one of the 30% on a lot of pick'em sites that pick the Browns to win, just because the Panthers just, I don't know, they're a mess. Their coach will probably be fired by the end of the year. Rule will probably be gone. McCaffrey, I don't know. Scored a touchdown at least, but didn't look that great overall. That offensive line has a lot to work on. And that offense in general has a lot to work on. Baker showed up somewhat, but he had a couple of interceptions, so that allowed them, or they had the chance to come back. They did come back, but then their defense fell apart and gave up a game-winning field goal. So the Browns are, that rushing attack looks really good, and again, that offensive line is still good. So they'll still be a decent team to reckon with, even without Deshaun Watson and only Jacoby Brissett. Brissett didn't completely F things up, so he should be. It'll be a week by week basis, but at the very least, after week 1, he is serviceable. Not the worst thing in the world. It's probably still more serviceable than Joe Flacco, but I digress. The Panthers just, leave a lot to be desired. They're nowhere near ready to compete. They have pieces, but they're nowhere near to compete. The Browns, once they have Deshaun Watson, could be a real juggernaut for sure, because that defense is great, or is pretty good. And their offensive line and running back tandem of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb is just excellent. I think a lot of people underestimated the Browns. I still think they'll struggle a lot throughout the year, just because, or Jacoby Brissett is just at a lower level than Deshaun Watson. No disrespect, but the Browns showed that they'll be able to compete this year for sure. We have Jacksonville and Washington. I didn't watch the game at all, but apparently Travis Etienne looked terrible. Robinson still looks really good. He looks really good for coming off that Achilles injury at the end of last year. That's a miracle. I think the Jags will get better. It's unfortunate at the end that they didn't win. Lawrence had a couple bad throws, but he looked better. If Travis Etienne doesn't drop that ball in the end zone, the game's probably different. And with the commies, I want to say the Redskins, but I don't want to get kicked off. But the commies look decent, I guess. But to be honest, Antonio Gibson still doesn't look that great. You better do better in the next game and the next game after that. Otherwise, Brian Robinson will come back, and he will come back where he left off. Well, hopefully he will, considering he was a shot. Hopefully there are thoughts that he could come back in week 5, possibly. I hope. Just Brian Robinson, get back soon. You're a great player, and you showed in the offseason that you can be the number 1 running back for Washington. And I hope you get better, please. Brian Robinson, get better, get well soon. But yeah, back to the Jags game. One of my pick'ems, I picked Jacksonville. One, I picked Washington. Really thought Jacksonville will pull it out at the end, but again, it's still the Jags. They will get better. I think they have a chance to get better in the future, but still the Jags, still work in progress. The team looks much better now that Lawrence has weapons now. Their defense is not the worst defense in the league. They had their chances to win today, or to win yesterday, and Washington just had a little bit more, mainly just because Lawrence had a couple bad throws, and ETN just looked awful. I'm glad I didn't go for him in any of my drafts. I think the Jags will get better. The Commies, I think, are still a mixed bag, just down to the core. Or the Commies trying to sell coffee mugs with their logo on it, or with their logo on it behind Washington State is hilariously awful and really bad. And he'll get better. Or I don't see Washington getting any better, honestly, until Daniel Snyder is gone. I don't advocate any owner getting their team taken away from them, but again, I have to defend people till the bitter end. But even Daniel Snyder, it's hard to defend him. He's just it's amazing how a guy who made so much money in the tech startup business that he just can't be bothered to do anything right with the team. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Then we have one of the other crazy games of week 1 with Indy versus Houston. Indy, uh, it's just it's depressing that you took till the fourth quarter to really get going against Houston. Jonathan Taylor will probably be better throughout the year, even though he had a great game. He had over 160 yards and a touchdown, but struggled in the beginning. Well, he had some good runs, but it was just kind of slowly plugging away and getting more yards. Michael Pittman looked great. All the projections about him being a great wide receiver this year were correct. He'll be good the rest of the year. Matt Ryan fumbled a couple times. He only lost the fumble once, but that's a concern. And the Colts are just a mystery team. They have all the pieces there, but can they actually all put it together week after week? I have my doubts for sure. And Houston, it's a shame that they didn't decide to or try and win. They decided to settle for the tie, it seems. But they have things to look forward to. I think Davis Mills is continuing to show that he belongs in the league. Hopefully, he'll continue to make it harder for the Texans next year. So, and hopefully, he'll do well enough that the Texans won't go after a quarterback, and they won't have to waste a high draft spot on a quarterback that might not pan out. But yeah, this game is just a big old cluster. And again, a game that suffered from missed field goals, especially on Indy's part. Indy should have won in overtime for sure. Yeah. I think Indy has all the pieces there. It's just a matter of not shitting the bed. Hopefully, they can make the playoffs this year. It's probably the only thing that could save Frank Reich's job. Though I really like Frank Reich as a coach. If they miss the playoffs again, I think he's done. I think he's toast. In Houston, hopefully Dameon Pierce can perform better. He didn't look great. I don't want to be wrong about that pick in my fantasy draft, but because he had that wide open pass that he dropped in the end zone. So, yeah, not a lot much else to say other than that game is crazy and it makes sense that the Colts end in a tie. Now, on to Tennessee and the Giants. Didn't watch this game at all. I was correct about the offense struggling. Tannehill just didn't look great for the most part, honestly. And Derrick Henry got over 80 yards, but I don't know. That offensive line is weaker than last year for sure. Hopefully, he can play better in the next game. I just had a feeling that all the talk about him, Derrick Henry, just completely going off against the Giants were not to be believed. And sure enough, it turned out to be true. And we had 21 carries for 82 yards. Not great. Hopefully they get better because without A.J. Brown, Tannehill looks lost. And they were just playing the Giants, who are probably going to be a bottom feeder team. So we'll see what they do against the Colts and the rest of their division, and the rest of the league for that matter. Yeah, the Giants. Saquon Barkley looking great. I remember talking about him in my NFC preview, saying that he could very well be back. I think, although I think it could just be another function of the Tennessee defense not being as good as advertised. Yes, they're missing Harold Landry for the year, so that hurts. But I still think Tennessee should have played better for sure. They shouldn't have lost that game. It's a statement win for first-year coach and Brian Dable. Hopefully, for their sake, they continue to plug away and get better. Daniel Jones didn't look like a complete pile of crap today. He looked pretty decent at times, making some good throws. But yeah, it was just another function of Tennessee just not probably being good as advertised. Probably get better next week, hopefully, for their sake. And the Giants, who knows? I don't know who they play. I'll get my thoughts on the games with my video on Thursday. But yeah, it's enough to say about that game. And then Green Bay, Minnesota, not much else to say. If you want to know my thoughts about this game, you can check out my video that I just released today. And then to go to Kansas City and Arizona, as I mentioned before, I think Kansas City performing so well is more so a function of Arizona's defense being terrible. Arizona's defense without Chandler Jones is missing a lot. It's easy to forget how good he has been with it. He was with Arizona before going to the Raiders this year. He was a double-digit sack man like every year, and he thrived. And it really shows without him being there, having that pass rush, they just couldn't pass rush at all. Mahomes had all day to throw, and probably makes Chiefs fans feel like, oh, Mahomes is great without Tyreek Hill, but it's one game. Reminder, Chiefs fans, that you'll be playing more difficult competition. The Cardinals were not great. Again, their defense probably faltered also just because of their offense's inability to do anything. Again, Kyler Murray without DeAndre Hopkins before DeAndre Hopkins came there, Kyler Murray looked to be a bust. I mean, he had potential still, but come on. He still has wheels and all, and that's the only thing keeping him as any reasonable good quarterback. But I don't know, you still think he's undersized. And the Cardinals, I think, are just going to struggle this year. I don't see a playoff berth at all. Yeah, the NFC East is okay. They still have the game with the Broncos versus the Seahawks tonight, but the defense leaves a lot to be desired without Chandler Jones, and probably won't get any better anytime soon. And so hopefully their offense can improve for next game, because boy, if they play like that every game, boy, they're going to be like a top 5 pick next year. I'm sure they'll still get some wins, and Kyler Murray will get better, but lots of chinks in that hole. And to talk about the Chiefs, their offense looks spectacular. I still think, like I said, more of a function of Arizona's defense being bad, but Mahomes will still be great. I just think against tougher competition, when push comes to shove, missing Tyreek Hill will hurt them more often than it will show that they can play without Tyreek Hill. Not much more to say. Kansas City still at least showed yesterday that they can still win the division. I still have them finishing 4th, but they showed signs that they can still compete. And to Las Vegas and the Chargers. Boy, this game was just weird. I mean, the Chargers lost Keenan Allen, so hopefully for their sake and for anybody that has Justin Herbert in fantasy, that won't hurt them too much. But Mike Williams was just kind of missing most of the game. Now, Herbert was still able to find targets, and he looked really great. He didn't seem to be missing Keenan Allen at all, although they sputtered a little bit towards the end of the game and had a couple of failed drives where they didn't score. But Justin Herbert overall didn't have a lot of incompletions, had a high completion percentage, had 3 touchdowns, nearly had 300 yards. He looked great. Still looks like a quality MVP candidate for sure. And yeah, hopefully Keenan Allen is not out for too long, but their defense looks pretty great. They held the Raiders to a couple field goals, and they did give up a touchdown, but they look pretty good overall. I mean, they did get torched by Devontae Adams, but most teams are going to get torched by Devontae Adams from day to day. So, but the Raiders, again, when you look at their roster, or when you look at their stats for wide receivers and compare them to a Packers receiver stat line game to the game from last year, you'll see, like with the Packers last year, you're going to see a lot of throws to Devontae Adams, a lot of catches. But then following wide receivers, you're going to see like a couple catches for 50 to 60 yards, and then a catch for 10, a catch for 20, a catch for 5. It's going to be an uneven target share towards Devontae Adams. And reasonably, understandably, that would be that way. He's still one of the best wide receivers in the league. But the Raiders are going to need to find more consistency to other receiving targets, because they could have won yesterday if they just were a little more accurate on Derek Carr's part. And that running attack doesn't look great. Like I mentioned with the AFC West preview, that the offensive line is not great for the Raiders. It's really not that great. And it'll probably show more times than not this year. So Devontae will probably still get the stats, but still not going to get a Super Bowl ring with the Raiders. Sorry. It's not going to happen. He's going to continue to fill up that stat line. He's going to look great, but what's the record going to be? That'll be the question. The Chargers avenged their loss from last year, and I still like the Chargers to win out in their division. Enough on that game. We have in the final game, since the Bronco and Seattle game has not been played yet, the Tampa Bay defense, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Dallas. That game was a shit show for sure. Both offenses did not look great. Dallas's defense held the Buccaneers to multiple field goals, and they gave up 1 touchdown. That amazing catch by Mike Evans. And all Dallas could manage was a field goal. Or understandably so, after Dak Prescott went down, but boy, the Cowboys probably are not going to look good without Dak Prescott. They're going to lean on Zeke a lot and probably Pollard too. But that offense does not look great. CeeDee Lamb probably going to have not so great year. I mean, they're probably Cooper Rush if he is the quarterback until Dak gets back. CeeDee Lamb will probably be fed the ball a lot, as they probably would have with Dak, but even more so because they don't have a lot of receiving talent besides it. Yeah, I know there's Noah Brown out there and Turpin, and Gallup should be coming back, but they look lost without Amari Cooper. And it's still funny that they got him or gave him away for only a fifth round pick because you can't manage your cap and you put too much money into Zeke and other players. But yeah, the Dallas is probably going to struggle, and I guess Mike McCarthy could still be back next year just because Jerry Jones um, likes or values loyalty. So who knows? He may be the next Jason Garrett. Who knows? Hopefully it is, so the Cowboys can continue to miss the playoffs and suck. And I'm pretty sure my prediction will be right this year that Dallas will not be in contention for the playoffs. Sure, Dak should be back in 6 to 8 weeks, but if they go 1-5 or 2-4, it could still be a tough road for them to get back to the playoffs. And especially with the Eagles looking as well as they did yesterday, it's the Eagles' division to win for sure. If the Eagles lose, and miss the playoffs, it'll be totally on them. But Eagles should win the division still, and Dallas is going to struggle. Now to go to Tampa Bay, Tom Brady looked like an old man out there. And if the rumors are true that this is his last year, good riddance. I can't wait till he's gone. But with the Buccaneers, they didn't look great, really, for most of the game. I mean, their defense is elite, but that offense is a little slow out of the gate. And now with Donovan Smith potentially being out and Chris Godwin potentially suffering a severe hamstring injury, which for fantasy owners, hopefully it's not the case. But yeah, supposedly his hamstring injury is really bad. We'll have to look more into that to see if it's really that bad. But hopefully for their sake, he comes back. Because Mike Evans is still there, and Julio Jones showed some flashes yesterday, but the offensive line is already held together by tape and glue. And if Donovan Smith misses any time, that offensive line is going to decrease more. And Brady got hit a couple good times. And their offense just looked kind of disjointed. They were able to score a touchdown, but they had to settle for a couple field goals. So the score looks a lot worse than it. I mean, the Buccaneers dominated on defense, but offense, not so much. So Tom Brady looks like an old man. Hopefully, this is the end for him. This year is the end for him. And the NFL can finally heal from his destructive influence and cheating ways of him in the hoodie. But Buccaneers will still be fierce throughout the year. I don't look forward to playing them as a Packers fan, even if Godwin is out, because that defense is so legit. But Tampa Bay has things to work on, and like I said before, Cowboys I think will continue to struggle. And with their last game, it hasn't been played yet, but I'll just go through a preview quick. I think Geno Smith is starting for Seattle, so that's not ideal, but he showed some flashes last year with Metcalf and Lockett at times. Not so much towards the end. And who knows what we'll see in what we would see in Drew Lock if he ever started this year, but it's just going to be rough for Seattle. Their running back should be decent. Hopefully, Rashad Penny continues to show what he did at the end of last year and lead him to a good contract next year with a different team, most likely. but Kenny Walker should be in there eventually and splitting time with Rashad Penny to the chagrin of fantasy owners like me who have Rashad Penny. But I mean, other than their offense, other than their a couple of their running backs, there's not much to speak of for this team. I mean, they got a high draft pick on the offensive line, but Seattle's just going to struggle for most of the year. And I don't think tonight's going to be pretty. I think it may be a little surprising. I think the Seattle will come out to play a little bit early against Denver just because they're playing against Russell Wilson. But in the end, I think Denver will succeed. To talk about the Broncos quickly, Russell Wilson should be fine for all throughout the year. The offense looks really potent with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Hopefully, Jeudy can shake off the shackles of the last couple of years and finally ball out. Cortland Sutton is probably going to be the number one receiver, with Jeudy not far behind. And at running back, of course, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Javonte's probably going to do great against this porous Seattle defense. And I do like the Seahawks to lose and the Broncos to win comfortably, maybe 34-14. And maybe 34 is a little much. Maybe 28-10. Yeah, we'll say that. Seattle might show up early, but they'll eventually fall out of favor, and Denver will pull through. And Russell Wilson be able to tell Denver faithful, all right, Denver faithful, let's ride. I had to give my rendition of that, but all in all, it's been a crazy week, as is most week ones of the year. A lot of seemingly interesting trends pop up that don't follow through the whole year. It's week one, so overreactions abound. It's the first game for every team, so there's things to work on. Some have more things to work on than others, like the Cowboys and the Falcons. And for an AFC team, let's say the Patriots, just to be fair. But yeah, there's things to work on for both teams, or for all teams. All teams have some bright spots here and there to work on and improve on. All teams have things to improve on. It's just the nature of the game. It's week one. You won't get a more full picture of what you might see the rest of the year until you get closer to week 3 and 4. By that time, some teams will have started to bottom out and begin to plan for next year. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully parity reigns again. But it should be an interesting year. I'm glad football is back. It's been a long time coming. With me starting this YouTube channel over the summer, I've been really looking forward to this season, and I like it. Should be a great season overall for all teams. And yeah, there's just to all the Packer fans, if there's any Packer fans that watch this, just know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Packers will get better. It's not the end of the world. And for any teams that may have disappointed this week, they'll get better. Some won't, but some will. And let's not overreact like all fans do. Doesn't appear I have anybody talking in the chat, so hopefully next week I'll get more people into my chat and want to discuss things as I go over the slated schedule, the results of next week's games. But maybe I'll just end it here. to anybody that may watch this live stream, I hope you enjoyed it. Give it a like, comment, and subscribe. This was a decent stream for me. It's just the first stream I've ever done, so it's a work in progress. It probably looked terrible at times just because this is a new format for me, but trying out new things, and I hope you enjoy it. Hope you all have a great day. Go Pack Go, and God bless.